I stare at the pile of my belongings haphazardly strewn in the hallway, my heart sinking with each passing second. The door to my loft, my sanctuary, remains firmly shut. The locks changed without my knowledge or consent. Confusion and disbelief wage a war inside me as I try to comprehend the scene before me. Surprise! Marcy's voice cuts through the haze, her tone dripping with false cheer. She emerges from behind the door, a smug grin plastered on her face. I'm pregnant, and we need a bigger place. Your loft is perfect. Her words hit me like a sucker punch, knocking the wind out of my lungs. What? You can't just take over my home, Marcy. This is my place, my life. Oh, come on, Tessa. You're never here anyway, always jetting off to some work thing. It's time to grow up and think about family. She rests her hand on her still flat stomach, her eyes glinting with a challenge. Anger bubbles up inside me, mixing with the sting of betrayal. Family? You mean the one that changes my locks and throws my stuff out without even a conversation? Marcy rolls her eyes, dismissing my outrage with a flippant wave of her hand. Don't be so dramatic. You can crash with Mom and Dad for a while. They'll be thrilled to have you back home. And what about my job, my responsibilities? I can't just upend my life because you decided to get knocked up. The words come out harsher than I intend, but the hurt fuels my indignation. Responsibilities? Marcy scoffs, her lips curling into a sneer. You mean like the way you've been playing the martyr, acting like you're the only one holding this family together? Well, guess what? It's my turn now. I need this more than you do. Her callousness cuts deep, the weight of her entitlement pressing down on my chest. You can't just take what's mine, Marcy. This is my home, my life. You have no right. No right. She laughs, the sound grating against my ears. I have every right. I'm the one starting a family, while you're just playing house in your fancy loft. It's time for you to step aside and let me have my chance. Tears prick at the corners of my eyes, but I refuse to let them fall. I won't give her the satisfaction of seeing me crumble. This isn't over, Marcy. You can't just steamroll over my life like this. Watch me. Her voice is cold, her eyes glinting with a triumphant gleam. Face it, Tessa, you've always been the responsible one, the one who cleans up everyone's messes. Well, now it's time for you to clean up your own. With those cutting words, she turns on her heel and slams the door in my face, leaving me standing amidst the wreckage of my life. The click of the lock echoes in the hallway, a brutal finality to her actions. I sink to the floor, my back pressed against the wall, as the weight of her betrayal crashes over me. How could she do this? How could my own sister, my flesh and blood, turn against me like this? As I sit there, surrounded by the scattered remnants of my life, a fierce determination takes root inside me. I won't let her win. I won't let her destroy everything I've worked so hard to build. I'll find a way to fight back, to reclaim what's rightfully mine. Marcy may think she's won, but she has no idea the storm that's coming her way. Growing up, I always felt like I was living in Marcy's shadow. She was the charming one, the free spirit who could light up a room with her smile. I, on the other hand, was the responsible one, the diligent daughter who worked hard to make something of myself. Our parents, Janet and Harold, always seemed to favor Marcy. They indulged her every whim, bailing her out of trouble time and time again. I remember the countless nights I stayed up late, studying for exams or working on projects, while Marcy was out partying with her friends. When I landed my first job as a marketing consultant, I thought things would change. I hoped that my parents would finally see me as an equal, someone to be proud of. But even then, Marcy managed to steal the spotlight. "Tessa, honey, we're so proud of you," Mom said during one of our weekly phone calls. "But have you heard about Marcy's latest adventure? She's going to backpack through Europe for a few months. Isn't that exciting?" I gritted my teeth, trying to keep the bitterness out of my voice. "That's great, Mom, but what about my promotion at work? I thought you'd be happy for me." "Of course we are, dear. It's just that Marcy's trip sounds so thrilling. You should try to be more spontaneous like her." Those words cut deep, reinforcing the notion that no matter what I achieved, Marcy would always be the favored child. As the years went by, I found myself financially supporting my parents, believing that the money was going towards their retirement. I sent them monthly checks, sacrificing my own savings to ensure they were comfortable. Little did I know that a significant portion of that money was being funneled straight into Marcy's pockets. She would call up our parents, spinning tales of financial woe and begging for help. And they, ever the doting parents, would readily dip into the funds I provided to bail her out. It wasn't until I started noticing discrepancies in my own finances that I began to suspect something was amiss. I pored over bank statements and credit card bills, my heart sinking with each transaction I couldn't account for. When I confronted my parents about it, they were evasive at first. "Tessa, you know we would never misuse your money," Dad said, his voice strained. "We've just had some unexpected expenses, that's all." But I wouldn't let it go. I pushed and prodded until the truth finally came out. They had been using my money to fund Marcy's lavish lifestyle, from designer clothes to exotic vacations. The betrayal cut me to the core. I had trusted them, believed that they had my best interests at heart, but all along, they had been enabling Marcy's reckless behavior at my expense. "How could you do this to me?" I asked, my voice trembling with a mixture of anger and hurt. "I worked so hard to support you, to make sure you were taken care of, and this is how you repay me?" Mom had the decency to look ashamed, but Dad remained defensive. "Marcy needed our help, Tessa. She's family, and we couldn't turn our backs on her." "But what about me?" I shot back, the tears threatening to spill over. "Am I not family too? Or am I just a convenient ATM for you to use whenever Marcy gets herself into trouble?" The silence that followed was deafening. In that moment, I realized that I had always been an afterthought in their eyes. Marcy was the golden child, the one they would move heaven and earth for. I was just the reliable one, the one they took for granted. As I walked out of their house that day, my heart shattered into a million pieces. I made a vow to myself. I would no longer be a pawn in their games. I would cut the financial ties that bound me to their manipulation and claim my independence, no matter the cost. With my belongings hastily packed into boxes and suitcases, I find myself standing on my best friend Emily's doorstep, feeling like a refugee from my own life. She opens the door, her eyes widening as she takes in my disheveled appearance. "Tessa, what happened?" she asks, ushering me inside. I collapse onto her couch, the weight of the past few hours crashing down on me. Through choked sobs, I pour out the story of Marcy's betrayal and my parents' complicity in her schemes. Emily listens intently, her brow furrowed with concern. "I can't believe they would do this to you," she says, shaking her head. "After everything you've done for them." "I feel like such a fool," I confess, wiping away the tears that refused to stop falling. "I trusted them, Em. I thought I was doing the right thing by supporting them." She sits down beside me, wrapping an arm around my shoulders. "You can't blame yourself, Tess. They took advantage of your kindness." As I lean into her comforting embrace, my mind races with the implications of my family's actions. I know I can't continue down this path, enabling their behavior at the cost of my own well-being. Over the next few days, as I settle into Emily's spare room, I begin to formulate a plan. I dive into my financial records, piecing together the extent of my parents' deceit. The more I uncover, the more my resolve hardens. I discover that they've been siphoning off money from the account I set up for their retirement, funneling it into Marcy's frivolous pursuits. Designer clothes, expensive trips, even a down payment on a luxury car, all funded by the money I had worked so hard to provide. The betrayal cuts deeper with each revelation, fueling the anger that simmers beneath my skin. I know I can't let this continue. I have to take a stand, to cut the financial ties that have bound me to their manipulation for far too long. I meet with a financial advisor, seeking guidance on how to disentangle myself from the mess my family has created. He helps me set up new accounts, separate from the ones my parents have been leeching off of. "You're making the right decision," he assures me, his voice filled with understanding. "It's not easy, but sometimes we have to put ourselves first." As I sign the paperwork, a sense of empowerment washes over me. For the first time in my life, I feel like I'm taking control, asserting my independence from the toxic dynamics that have held me back for so long. But even as I take these steps towards freedom, I know that the hardest part is yet to come. I have to confront my parents, to make them understand the consequences of their actions. I steel myself for the inevitable showdown, rehearsing the words I'll say over and over in my mind. I won't let them manipulate me anymore, won't let them twist the truth to suit their own selfish needs. As I walk into their house, my heart pounds in my chest, but I refuse to let my resolve waver. They look up at me, their faces etched with a mixture of surprise and apprehension. "Tessa, what's going on?" Mom asks, her voice trembling slightly. I take a deep breath, steadying myself for the confrontation that's about to unfold. "We need to talk," I say, my voice firm and unwavering. "About the money, about Marcy, about everything." Their eyes widen, guilt flashing across their features. They know that the truth is about to come out, that the carefully constructed web of lies they've spun is about to unravel. And as I stand there, ready to face the storm, I know that this is just the beginning. The road ahead may be rocky, but I'm determined to forge my own path, to break free from the chains of my family's manipulation and claim the life I deserve. The family gathering is in full swing when I arrive, the sound of laughter and chatter filling the air. I take a deep breath, steeling myself for the confrontation that's about to unfold. With a stack of credit card statements clutched in my hand, I make my way through the crowd, my eyes scanning the room for Marcy. I find her holding court in the kitchen, surrounded by a group of admiring relatives. She's regaling them with tales of her latest shopping spree, bragging about the designer clothes and expensive jewelry she's acquired. "Marcy, we need to talk," I say, my voice cutting through the frivolity like a knife. She turns to face me, her eyes narrowing as she takes in the serious expression on my face. "Can't it wait, Tessa? I'm in the middle of a story." "No, it can't." I hold up the credit card statements, my hand trembling slightly. "We need to talk about this." Marcy's eyes widen as she realizes what I'm holding, a flicker of panic crossing her features. She quickly composes herself, plastering a fake smile on her face. "I don't know what you're talking about, sis. Those must be your statements." I shake my head, anger bubbling up inside me. "Don't lie to me, Marcy. I know you've been using my credit to finance your little shopping adventures." The room falls silent, the tension palpable. Our relatives exchange uncomfortable glances, sensing the storm that's about to break. "I have no idea what you're talking about," Marcy insists, her voice dripping with false innocence. "You must be mistaken." I can't contain my fury any longer. "Mistaken? You've been racking up thousands of dollars in charges on my credit cards, Marcy. Designer clothes, expensive jewelry, lavish vacations, all on my dime." Marcy's facade cracks, her true colors shining through. "Oh, come on, Tessa. It's not like you can't afford it. You're the big shot with the fancy job, remember?" Her words are like a slap in the face, the entitlement and lack of remorse behind them stunning me into silence for a moment. But I quickly recover, my resolve hardening. "That's not the point, Marcy. You had no right to use my credit without my permission. It's fraud, plain and simple." She scoffs, rolling her eyes. "Fraud? Don't be so dramatic, sis. It's just a little shopping. No big deal." I can feel the eyes of our relatives on us, the weight of their judgment heavy in the air, but I refuse to back down, to let Marcy's manipulations go unchallenged any longer. "It is a big deal, Marcy. You've been taking advantage of me for years, using me as your personal piggy bank. Well, guess what? I'm done. I'm done enabling your reckless behavior, done cleaning up your messes." Marcy's eyes flash with anger, her true nature finally exposed for all to see. "You're just jealous, Tessa. Jealous that I know how to live life to the fullest while you're stuck in your boring little world." I shake my head, a bitter laugh escaping my lips. "You call this living life to the fullest? Stealing from your own sister, manipulating our parents, leaving a trail of destruction in your wake? That's not living, Marcy. That's being a selfish, entitled brat." The room erupts into chaos, our relatives taking sides and voices rising in a cacophony of accusations and defenses. But I tune them out, my focus solely on Marcy. "I'm cutting you off, Marcy. No more access to my credit, no more bailouts from our parents. It's time for you to face the consequences of your actions." With those words, I turn on my heel and walk out of the room, ignoring the shouts and pleas behind me. I know that this is just the beginning, that Marcy won't go down without a fight, but I'm ready for whatever she throws my way. I'm done being her doormat, done sacrificing my own happiness for her selfish whims. It's time for me to take back control of my life, no matter the cost. In the days following the confrontation at the family gathering, I throw myself into the task of gathering evidence against Marcy. I pore over bank statements, credit card bills, and email trails, piecing together the extent of her deceit. The more I uncover, the more my anger grows. Marcy hasn't just been using my credit for her shopping sprees. She's been actively trying to turn our family against me, spinning tales of my supposed selfishness and lack of family loyalty. I find emails she sent to our parents, painting me as the villain in our story. Tessa's always been jealous of me, she writes. She can't stand to see me happy, so she's trying to ruin my life. The lies and manipulation are so blatant, so calculated, that I can hardly believe what I'm reading. How could my own sister be so cruel, so vindictive? But I refuse to let her win. I gather all the evidence I can find, compiling it into a neat little package that I know will be her undoing. As I work, I can't help but think back on all the times Marcy has taken advantage of me over the years. The borrowed money that was never repaid, the favors that were never returned, the snide comments and backhanded compliments that chipped away at my self-esteem. I realize now that I've been too passive, too willing to let her walk all over me in the name of family harmony. But no more. It's time for me to stand up for myself, to demand the respect and fairness that I deserve. I meet with a lawyer, seeking guidance on how to proceed. He looks over the evidence I've gathered, nodding approvingly. "This is solid, Tessa," he says. "We can definitely build a case against your sister for fraud and identity theft." The words fraud and identity theft hit me like a punch to the gut. I never imagined that things would go this far, that my own sister would be facing legal consequences for her actions. But I know that I can't back down now. I have to see this through, no matter how painful it may be. I start to distance myself from my family, knowing that Marcy will stop at nothing to turn them against me. I change my phone number, block their emails, and refuse to engage in any further communication. It's a lonely existence, cut off from the people I once held dear. But I know that it's necessary, that I can't let myself be dragged back into the toxic cycle of enabling and codependency that has defined our relationship for so long. As I prepare for the inevitable legal battle ahead, I can't help but feel a sense of sadness mixed with the anger and betrayal. I never wanted things to come to this, never wanted to have to take such drastic measures against my own flesh and blood. But I know that I'm doing the right thing, not just for myself, but for Marcy as well. She needs to face the consequences of her actions, to learn that she can't go through life taking advantage of others without repercussions. I steel myself for the fight ahead, knowing that it won't be easy. Marcy will undoubtedly try to paint me as the villain, to twist the truth to suit her own selfish narrative. But I have the truth on my side, and I won't let her lies and manipulations win out in the end. I'll present my evidence, lay bare the extent of her deceit, and let the chips fall where they may. As I sit in my temporary refuge, surrounded by the boxes and suitcases that contain the remnants of my former life, I know that I'm on the cusp of something big, a chance to break free from the chains of my past, to forge a new path for myself free from the toxic influence of my family. It won't be easy, but I'm ready for whatever comes my way. I'm done being a victim, done letting others dictate the course of my life. From now on, I'm the one in control, and heaven help anyone who tries to stand in my way. The day of the mediation session arrives, and I find myself sitting across from Marcy and our parents in a sterile conference room. The tension in the air is palpable, the weight of the impending confrontation heavy on my shoulders. Marcy sits there, a smug smile on her face, as if she's already won. Our parents look uncomfortable, shifting in their seats and avoiding eye contact with me. The mediator, a stern-looking woman in her 50s, clears her throat and begins the proceedings. We're here today to address the allegations of fraud and identity theft brought forth by Tessa Johnson against her sister, Marcy Johnson. Marcy scoffs, rolling her eyes. This is ridiculous. Tessa's just being dramatic, as usual. I feel my anger rising, but I take a deep breath and focus on the task at hand. I nod to my lawyer, who begins presenting the evidence we've gathered. He lays out the credit card statements, the email trails, the bank records that show the extent of Marcy's deceit. With each piece of evidence, I see the color drain from Marcy's face, the realization that she's been caught red-handed slowly sinking in. Our parents look stunned, their eyes widening as the truth of Marcy's actions is revealed. They turn to her, disbelief and disappointment etched on their faces. "Marcy, how could you?" Mom asks, her voice trembling. "How could you do this to your own sister?" Marcy's facade cracks, her true nature spilling out in a torrent of anger and resentment. "Oh, spare me the lecture, Mom. You've always favored Tessa, always put her needs above mine. I was just taking what I deserved." Dad shakes his head, his voice heavy with sadness. "We never favored Tessa, Marcy. We love you both equally. But what you've done, it's unforgivable." Marcy laughs, a bitter, hollow sound. "Unforgivable? That's rich, coming from you two. You're the ones who enabled her, who let her play the martyr while I got scraps." I can't hold back any longer. I lean forward, my voice shaking with anger. "Scraps, Marcy? I've been supporting you for years, bailing you out of every mess you've gotten yourself into. And this is how you repay me, by stealing from me, by trying to turn our family against me." Marcy's eyes narrow, her voice dripping with venom. "You've always been the golden child, Tessa, the perfect daughter, the one who could do no wrong. Well, guess what? I'm done living in your shadow." The mediator clears her throat, trying to regain control of the situation. "Miss Johnson, the evidence against you is quite clear. You're facing serious legal consequences for your actions." Marcy's face pales, the reality of her situation finally hitting her. She turns to our parents, desperation in her eyes. "Mom, Dad, you have to help me. You can't let her do this to me." But our parents shake their heads, their faces etched with disappointment and resignation. "We can't help you anymore, Marcy," Dad says. "You've gone too far this time." I feel a twist of satisfaction at Marcy's despair, but it's tempered by the sadness of seeing our family torn apart. I never wanted things to come to this, but I know that I had no choice. The mediator turns to me, her voice sympathetic. "Miss Johnson, I understand that this has been a difficult and painful process for you, but you've done the right thing by coming forward and seeking justice." I nod, feeling a sense of relief wash over me. It's not the outcome I hoped for, but it's a start. A chance to break free from the toxic cycle of enabling and codependency that has defined our family for so long. As we leave the conference room, I know that the road ahead won't be easy. Marcy will undoubtedly face legal consequences for her actions, and our family will have to grapple with the fallout of her betrayal. But I also know that I'm ready for whatever comes next. I've found my strength, my voice, and I won't let anyone silence me again. This is my story, my life, and I'm the one who gets to write the ending. In the weeks following the mediation session, I watch as Marcy's world begins to crumble around her. The legal consequences of her actions start to catch up with her, and she's forced to face the reality of the mess she's created. I hear through the grapevine that she's been fired from her job, her employer citing the pending fraud charges as grounds for termination. Her fancy apartment, the one she so gleefully took from me, is now in jeopardy as she struggles to make ends meet. Part of me feels a twisted sense of satisfaction at seeing her suffer, at watching the scales of justice finally tip in my favor. But another part of me, the part that still remembers the little girl who used to climb into my bed during thunderstorms, feels a pang of sadness at how far we've fallen. I try to push those feelings aside, focusing instead on the task of rebuilding my own life. I throw myself into my work, taking on new projects and responsibilities in an effort to distract myself from the pain of my family's betrayal. But even as I try to move forward, Marcy's presence still lingers like a shadow over my life. She starts calling me at all hours of the day and night, her voice slurred and desperate as she begs for my help. "Tessa, please," she sobs into the phone. "I need money. I'm going to lose everything." I feel a flicker of anger at her audacity, at the fact that she still thinks she can manipulate me into cleaning up her messes. "You should have thought of that before you stole from me, Marcy. I'm not your personal ATM anymore." She lashes out then, her voice filled with venom. "You're enjoying this, aren't you? Seeing me suffer, watching me lose everything. You've always been jealous of me, always wanted to see me fail." I shake my head, even though she can't see me. "I never wanted this, Marcy. I never wanted our family to be torn apart like this. But you made your choices, and now you have to live with the consequences." She hangs up on me then, and I'm left feeling drained and empty. I know that I'm doing the right thing by cutting her off, by refusing to enable her any longer. But it doesn't make it any easier to watch my sister self-destruct. As the weeks turn into months, I start to hear rumors about Marcy's increasingly erratic behavior. She's been spotted drunk in public, getting into fights with strangers, and causing scenes at local bars. I try to distance myself from the gossip, focusing instead on my own healing. I start seeing a therapist, working through the years of trauma and codependency that have defined my relationship with my family. It's a slow and painful process, but gradually I start to feel a sense of hope and possibility that I haven't felt in years. I start to imagine a life beyond the confines of my family's dysfunction, a future where I'm free to be my own person, unencumbered by the weight of their expectations and demands. And then, one day, I receive a letter from Marcy. It's short and to the point, a simple apology for all the pain she's caused me over the years. "I know I can't undo what I've done," she writes, "but I'm getting help now, and I'm trying to be a better person. I hope that someday you can find it in your heart to forgive me." I read the letter over and over again, feeling a mix of emotions swirling inside me. Part of me wants to crumple it up and throw it away, to dismiss it as just another manipulation tactic. But another part of me, the part that still remembers the bond we once shared, feels a glimmer of hope. Maybe, just maybe, there's a chance for us to heal, to find a way forward that doesn't involve the toxic cycles of the past. I know that it won't be easy, that there's no guarantee that Marcy will follow through on her promises. But for the first time in a long time, I allow myself to hope, to believe that change is possible. And as I sit there, holding that letter in my hands, I know that whatever happens next, I'll face it with the strength and resilience that I've fought so hard to earn. 2 years later, I find myself in a new city, thousands of miles away from the memories of my past. I've built a new life for myself here, one that's free from the toxic influence of my family and the constant drama that seemed to follow us wherever we went. My career has taken off in ways I never could have imagined, and I find myself thriving in my new role as a marketing executive. I've made new friends, formed new relationships, and discovered a sense of purpose and fulfillment that I never knew was possible. But even as I embrace this new chapter of my life, I can't help but think about the family I left behind. I wonder how they're doing, if they've managed to find their own paths to healing and redemption. I think about my parents, the ones who enabled Marcy's behavior for so long, and I feel a pang of sadness mixed with frustration. I know that they're not entirely to blame for what happened, that they were victims of Marcy's manipulation just as much as I was. But I also know that they played a role in perpetuating the cycle of dysfunction that nearly destroyed our family. They refused to see the truth about Marcy's behavior, choosing instead to turn a blind eye and make excuses for her actions. I've tried to maintain a relationship with them, sending the occasional email or text message to let them know that I'm doing okay. But there's a distance between us now, a gulf that feels impossible to bridge. I know that they're struggling to adjust to life without Marcy's constant demands and manipulations. I've heard through the grapevine that they've had to downsize their lifestyle, selling off assets and cutting back on expenses in order to stay afloat. Part of me feels a twisted sense of satisfaction at the thought of them finally facing the consequences of their actions. But another part of me, the part that still remembers the love and support they once provided, feels a deep sense of sadness at how far we've fallen. I try to push those feelings aside, focusing instead on the task of building a better future for myself. I've learned the hard way that I can't change the past, that I can't force my family to be something they're not. But what I can do is make sure that I never repeat their mistakes. I can break the cycle of codependency and dysfunction that nearly destroyed us all, and create a new legacy for myself that's based on honesty, integrity, and self-respect. And so I pour myself into my work, into my friendships, into the things that bring me joy and fulfillment. I volunteer at local charities, donate to causes that I believe in, and try to make a positive difference in the world around me. I know that I can't save everyone, that I can't fix all the broken parts of my family's past, but I can be a force for good in my own life and in the lives of those around me. And as for Marcy, the sister who nearly destroyed everything I held dear, I hear through the grapevine that she's started to turn her life around, that she's entered a rehab program, and is working to make amends for her past actions. I don't know if I'll ever be able to forgive her completely, if I'll ever be able to trust her again after everything that's happened. But I do know that I'm proud of her for taking that first step, for finally acknowledging the pain she's caused and working to be a better person. Maybe someday we'll find our way back to each other. Maybe we'll be able to rebuild the bond that was once so strong between us. But for now, I'm content to focus on my own journey, on the path that I've chosen for myself. And as I look out at the city skyline, at the endless possibilities that stretch out before me, I know that I'm exactly where I'm meant to be. I'm free, I'm happy, and I'm finally living life on my own terms.